I have, and it's so odd, and it may be bullshit. And because I do not work for a company now, I am perfectly fine saying words like bullshit. But anyway, I was working at a company recently, and I was starting to get these emails, and I sent it off to security because I did care about the company that I worked with, saying, "Look, I have this email from a university student who wants to interview me about my career because he saw me on LinkedIn and he finds it to be interesting and whatever. And he wants to talk about something, God knows what." Um, and I want to get into that. And I recorded a whole bunch of shit earlier. It was all shit. But no, it was actually very good, but no one cares, so I'm not gonna post it. But I want to tell people, and I'm just gonna do this once because no, I'm not going to answer every single person that sends me a message. I got into this whole thing. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, I got into this whole thing that I've been doing because I guess it was around 92, 93. I was studying music. My father had passed away. I knew I couldn't go on with music. I had a computer that had MS DOS and Windows 3.1 on it. And the girl that I was dating at the time said, "Hey, there's this thing at the university. You should check this out and you can get access to the internet." So I did that and I got access to the internet. And then I started researching and I realized that there's this thing Unix, that a lot of the internet was, a lot of the hosts on the internet were using Unix. And then I kept on reading and I bought a lot of books. And I found out that there's this free version of Unix or a Unix clone called Linux. This is in 1994, I do believe, and the stable kernel version of this is now released, and you can now use this. And so, with many tears from my girlfriend who thought I was destroying my computer, I installed Linux on my computer, and I make no bones about this. And to many tears to my girlfriend who thought I was breaking my computer, I installed Linux, and and it was fascinating. And I read all of the man pages on there, and I learned about TCP/IP because you can see all of the arguments for every function for TCP/IP. It was really fascinating, and I ended up getting a job at an ISP because what happened was commercial ISPs opened up, and I became a customer of this ISP, and then I immediately had a huge bill for online time because you had to pay per hour back then, and I had a huge bill because I was on internet relay chat talking to other people about Unix because that's what I was studying and that's what I wanted to learn. Anyway, I was off at university at the time. But my point is that I thought that the internet was going to be a very good thing for humanity because it was about sharing information. But of course, the information is only good if it's somewhat truthful and somewhat tested, right? So anyway, I did that, and I ended up volunteering at the ISP to pay off my IRC bill, and then they hired me as an employee afterwards. And I was just doing things like figuring out like why is the NNTP server dying? What's going on with SendMail? And the owner and CEO of the company was very smart. Like he was great actually, but he had no faith in me because I used to fall asleep at work. But what he didn't know was that the reason I was falling asleep was because the night before I would be up all night answering customer emails and their questions about why their HTML wasn't working and all this other crap. So that was the beginning of all this for me. And then I got laid off from there because they were not billing customers correctly, and so we didn't have any money, and they couldn't pay us. And so, like, I would blame myself if I was the only person laid off, but there was another young guy who was laid off, and he was very talented, and he was, I don't think he was making that much money. So I don't think, yeah, I think, it was a business problem. It wasn't us. There's a lot of shootings in this neighborhood lately. But anyway, I went home and I said to my girlfriend, and I had mentioned to her that I got to get out of here. I'm going to go to Toronto earlier on. And then when I was laid off, it was like, okay, I got to get out of here now because I think there's jobs. And I want to say this quickly because I tried to record this earlier, but no one cares enough to listen for too long. But what happened was this. I looked in the newspaper. I sent an email, I think it was, to a guy in Toronto who responded to me, I need you down here tomorrow. This is after I got laid off at this job, right? So I took a Greyhound bus and went to Toronto. I'm a street kid. In case you don't know, I am a street kid. I went down to Toronto the next day, got in an elevator in some corporate building, went up to whatever floor, and this guy met me in a nice suit, and he's like, oh, Blaine, I'm so glad to see you. Right? He's like, Blaine, I've got the job for you. They want this, everyone wants Unix people. This is the perfect thing for you. And whatever. And I left my resume there, and I went home. And then he called me that evening, and he said, Blaine, I need you to come. No, he said, you're going to be getting a phone call. I just wanted to make sure you're home. You're going to get a phone call. And I'm like, yeah, I'm home. And I get a phone call from this other company, and they're like, we need you to come down tomorrow morning to do an interview. So I'm an hour and a half away, and I'm taking the bus. And I went into town. I saw this guy. I came home. They called me. They want me to come down the next morning, and they won't take no for an answer. So I went down there the next day and did an interview. And then I came home, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, I don't know. They didn't like the shirt and tie I was wearing because I was poor. So I may not get the job. That was the only complaint they had that they mentioned to me. As I was having this, and she was smiling and nodding her head. And as it was happening, the phone rings. And I pick up the phone. They're like, Blaine, we need you to come down tomorrow to sign the paperwork for your new job. And I said, does it have to be tomorrow? Because this is going to be 3 days in a row that I've traveled around here. We need you down here tomorrow. And I turned to my girlfriend and I said, I suddenly, a poor kid who is a street kid has a job. And I am going down to Toronto to sign the paperwork. Now, she ended up crying, and that's a whole other thing, because she didn't actually support me in moving to Toronto. But off I went anyway. And the next morning I went down and I got that job. Now, I was absolutely not the best person to have that job, even though I loved Unix and all of this other stuff. And I'm just going to go through this quickly. I didn't do so well at my first job, in my opinion. But they treated me well because they needed good Unix people. And I was dedicated to the company and all of that. And then I ended up leaving there because I was fed up because they were not investing in being the best, which made sense for that company. Whatever. It was a telco. They did not want to be the best. And I left for another company that was very, very good and had a lot of developers there. And all the stuff was written in C and C++. And it was all very exciting. And I stayed there for quite a while until they, I did the best I could for them. I ended up agreeing to having a third party replace a lot of the work that I was doing because it seemed like they were going to do a better job and it was going to be more efficient. But in the end, their stuff got slower and slower, and it ended up costing more than what I had done originally. And I learned from that, but whatever. Eventually, I had to leave that place, and then I went on to the next place, which is the place that I spent 20 years at, where a person contacted me and said, we need to come up with a cost-effective way to store petabytes of data. And that's essentially what I went in there for on the Unix side, and everything had changed. It wasn't C and C++ anymore. We're talking Java, which is great because now you've got like the garbage collection and all that other stuff, and you do not have so many issues with pointers and stuff like that. But you do end up having issues with exceptions that are not caught and it's shut down and all that. But we did really well, and what we did was we built like an enterprise system essentially. I was just proof listening to this. Is that a word? And I wanted to throw something in here. I want people to understand what the world was like back then when we were building this. And I had totally skipped out on this. I was just saying how we did certain things. And sorry, I just had a shower in between. But anyway, I want to explain something. We were building an enterprise system, let's say, or a huge scalable system. And in the early days of that, we were actually bringing in vendors because I knew what I had to build. And in order to, so I had two main objectives for my work. And these are mine. This is personally what I brought to the table. Number one, keep it simple, stupid. I do not want, from an operations perspective, all kinds of scripts that are like far too complex for people coming into the company in the future, because we know we're going to grow. I do not want that complexity. So we're going to use shell scripts until a certain point, and then when it gets a little bit more complex, we will use, in those days, Perl. Isn't that ironic, because you don't see Perl out there very much. But the Perl was going to be very simple. We did not want to use like too many extra libraries and stuff, but that was one thing. And I've always been like that. Keep it simple, stupid. It doesn't have to be complex. The other thing was you do not want to spend money you don't have to spend. So I knew what I wanted for a lot of the data storage. And we did bring in vendors. And I'm going to mention one vendor. Was IBM came in. And I explained to them precisely what I needed. I mean, there was no confusion about what I wanted. And the guy showed me a bunch of different stuff. And I said, okay, I'm trying to explain to you. This is like the form factor that I want. This is the amount of terabytes I need per square inch that we're using up in a rack and all this other stuff. And he got upset because he wanted to make a sale. And this is what he said. Everyone thinks they can make a system like you describe. They always fail, and they always come back. Good luck. And he left. And we were going to buy so much hardware, but vendors refused to deal with us because they did not see the money in it, because they didn't have all those extras to throw on top. I wanted to keep it inexpensive, and I wanted to keep it simple. And they did not want that. Okay, now I'm not blaming IBM in total for losing a potential contract. I'm saying sales guys, there was like, I don't see any money in this for me. Good luck, see you later. And we succeeded, but I had to, and I'm not really a hardware guy, I had to start building the hardware myself, installing all the hard drives myself, I chose the OS. That really was part of the job, is to choose the OS and the layout of all of that, how it's going to work to support all of our software. But it's just a memory that came back to me. And it's astounding that people were willing to turn away money from a company that now, we were acquired later on, and it was just absolutely huge, and there was an opportunity there. But, people couldn't see it because they didn't believe in us. And I think this is one of my greatest achievements in my entire life, is that they were like, you can't do it. It's impossible. You're going to fail. And we succeeded. But anyway, I'm going to get back now into my original recording. A few of us. And then we hired more and more people to grow it into a bigger thing. And eventually we were sold off. We're Canadians, right? So essentially it was sold off to an American company, because Canadians do not invest in this sort of thing. And it was sold off to an American company. And so those were all very good times and very exciting. But what's happened now with the industry, if you're asking about should I get involved in high tech, is that everything is being homogenized now and moving into cloud services. This is what I'm noticing. And so there used to be a lot of individual work, and not only that, we have AI now as well. So writing decent code, some of that just goes into AI. It's like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? Whereas in my entire career, I've just met so many people that can code so many wonderful things, but now it's moving to AI. The big change, I would say, if someone wants to get into high tech now, the biggest difference is that everything is homogenized. Everything's moving into AWS. So you have to look at it not from a coding perspective. Forget about that, right? Because AI is moving in, coding is being homogenized, and services are being homogenized. So I would suggest learn AWS or Azure or whatever and say, do I see myself spending the next 40 years working in this? It's as simple as that. You have to make that decision. Now, there's another thing, and that is that when I first got involved with the internet and TCP/IP, I had an optimism about what was going to come out of it. I thought it was about good communication, honest communication. Okay? Let's face it, a lot of the communication is bullshit and lies. We can't stop that. It goes on many platforms. It's all over the place. Okay? So I don't believe in that side of it anymore. And my friends at the time, when I thought that the internet was a great thing, will laugh because they always said the reality is there's going to be a bunch of bullshit out there. And it's true that there is. That's one thing. But the other thing is that if you want to work in high tech, you have to choose the companies you want to work with. Who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with Uber? Really? A company that has gone against municipalities legally to force themselves in there? Do you want to go with Airbnb? A company that is rotting out cities with short-term rentals, driving up rents. When I started in this business, I believed in Silicon Valley companies. I thought they were providing a value for us. Who's providing that value now? Even the companies that I respect, and I respect Amazon, you have to step back and say, what is the value they're providing to society? And my computer, of course, stops because it's got Microsoft software running on it. My first hate. Garbage. But anyway, who are you going to work for? What's the great company you're going to work for now? I had a lot of respect for a lot of companies in the past. Not so much anymore. Most of the stuff that's going on with these huge companies is garbage. And it's garbage for our society. Is that what you want? I want to work for a volunteer organization, making 1/10 of what I used to make, making the world a better place. That's what I'd like to do. I hope I find that. I want to work for people that want to make the world a better place, even if they are for profit. I have no interest in working for some of these assholes that are destroying municipalities and going to war against governments. Absolute shit. It's causing so many fucking problems for us, right? And I think I can say that now. Because I'm not saying bad things about my old company. Now I can speak whatever the fuck I want. And if they got a problem with that, I have no problems going to court. But I don't see a problem with that. There's nothing telling me I can't say that. So, where does that leave, though, these young guys who used to think, oh, I just want to graduate from university and I'm going to move to Silicon Valley and I'm going to pay $6,000 a month for rent in San Francisco and drive other people out of their houses and everything's going to be great, you know? Because that's what it comes down to. I don't know. I know maybe one person that became semi-wealthy from working in high tech. And to do that, he had to travel around the world and work under enormous stress. And I still don't know, because he doesn't talk to me, if he's actually wealthy from all of it. And if it worked out. You know? But, so if you were to say to me, why, Blaine, should I go into tech? Why would someone go into high tech? I got my guitar. Because that's what I actually love. I would love Unix if I was doing something with someone who gives a crap, you know? And I'm all over that. I'll be there tomorrow. But, Blaine, why should we get into high tech if you know, what's a good reason? I'm going to tell you this. The people in high tech are so incredible. And I read all this stuff about people being happy about high tech people getting laid off. Give me a break. You know nothing. What incredible people I've worked with. They are intelligent, compassionate, you know, ethical. I've never seen anything like it. It is absolutely incredible. Some of the people I've worked with, their level of intelligence, their level of humor, their level of ethics is incredible to me. And there are no laws around this. It's not like they're doctors. They do not have to sign up to a Hippocratic oath. Whatever the fuck it is. They don't have to do that. Some of them are engineers with the rings, right? But typically, they don't have to do this. And yet they are exceptional. And they are ethical. And they are professional. It blows my mind. The people I have worked with. Nuts. It's nuts. And where are the ethics in the companies now? And I'm not talking about, you know, I was recently laid off and whatever. That's a decent company I was laid off from. They're great, whatever. They actually contacted me and said, "Hey, you're getting laid off." You know, they didn't just turn off my computer. It's great to get into high tech, even though it's being homogenized. It's still great to be into high tech, but if you're gonna have to work for a company that is destroying society in order to enjoy working in high tech, go get a fucking guitar and go do something else. Fuck them. They don't deserve a penny from any of us. They are riding on all the work that was done at Berkeley and AT&T behind the scenes, you know, and by Linus, to destroy the fucking economy. I don't give a shit about them, and if that's where you need to go now to work in high tech, find a different career. Find a different career. But I hope that there are other companies out there now where people can go and continue working in high tech and using this technology and make the world a better place. That's what it should be about. And if you think you can find that, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to find now. But if you think you can find that, that is the way to go, in my opinion. Sorry for insulting anyone. Thank you very much for watching my program tonight. Have a good night.